In his whole attitude through all of this cancer, Alan was honored that God had chosen him to be an example to other people. And I thought many times after he fell asleep, I would love to be able to meet that person who he was the biggest example to.
What sustains people when life plunges them into darkness and difficulty? I set out to explore and document remarkable faith stories from around the world. My journey led me to Coldwater, Ontario, where I met Hannah. Married at a very young age, Hannah experienced the joy and magic of love, yet then had to survive a tragedy she never imagined would happen to her.
When I was 15, I went to visit a friend in Massachusetts. I remember waking up one morning and someone was playing the piano. And I was so annoyed because it woke me up. And I looked down over the railing and there was this blonde cap just sitting at the piano playing some beautiful music. And I was thinking to myself, wow, who is that? And then, anyway, so later that day, I met this young brother. His name was Alan Tunnell. And apparently, at some point during this 2-week process, he called home and told his mom that he had met the girl of his dreams and who he was going to marry. So he was quite smitten with me, I guess, at the same time. We managed to get together and connected at this Bible school, and we started dating. He was from California, and I was in New Brunswick, where I grew up, and it was a 3,000-mile distance, almost 4,000 miles apart. But somehow we managed to make it work. I would go visit him, when I could. I was still in high school, so it was a lot of juggling and trying to work to save money so that we could be together. And we would spend like 2 weeks together and then, have to be apart for 6 months. And this was before we had internet. So there was letters written every day and there was phone calls when we could. We were just so in love with each other. 6-page letters, and we were sending them back and forth every single day. Like, just, I would get, if I didn't get one, I was like, uh-oh, what's wrong? But it was always, just that excitement of the mailbox was at the end of the driveway and Mom would get the mail and, there'd be a big padded envelope sitting on the kitchen table for me. As we got to know each other, I learned that he had had a kidney transplant when he was 17. He had a disease called IgA nephropathy. Turns out that his older brother was able to donate a kidney, and that process really changed, I think, his outlook in life. He was a very happy, loving, spiritual person, and having this happen to him at such a young age made him appreciate his life. About 1.5 years into our relationship, we got engaged. I was still very young, still in high school. But we both knew that that's what we wanted. We had a formal wedding in New Brunswick, and then we got married kind of his style, which was barefoot and shorts and in his parents' backyard. And that was lovely as well. But that was actually the legal wedding so that we could start the visa process. He had a steady job. He was healthy. He loved playing volleyball. He loved fishing, and he loved life. It was only about 14 months maybe into our marriage that he started to not feel very well. He was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma, which at the time we weren't told was a terminal cancer. We were just told we would start treatments and we would figure this out as we went along. It didn't scare him. And I think because he'd already had a life and death experience, he was just so comfortable with the situation that he made me comfortable. And I never did believe that he would pass away. It just never really occurred to me because I just thought he would get better because the doctors had never told us it was terminal. So he went through multiple treatments, all chemotherapy. But they discovered that the treatments weren't working. So they chose to try and do a stem cell transplant. Unfortunately, he had infections and the fever would stop the process and he wasn't able to continue. Within a very short period of time, he went downhill. On the Monday, I actually left the hospital room because I had to go home and shower and change. When I came back, he was gone, and I couldn't figure out where he'd gone. And one of the nurses said to me, "He's been taken to ICU." And so that was a shock because I had no idea that he was that sick. I really thought that that the treatments were working. I think there was maybe a miscommunication a little bit between the doctors with us, but they realized there was nothing more that could be done. And so they released him down to the palliative care. I was still in disbelief through all of this because we weren't told it was a terminal cancer. So I just had that hope and that belief that he would be cured and that he would be okay. I remember having to call my mother-in-law to tell her that her son was not going to live much longer. And it was hard. Probably one of the hardest things I've had to do is to tell the family that their loved one's not going to live much longer and they had to come to the hospital quickly. So all of our families came and they all camped out in the waiting room of the hospital. I remember saying to him, because it seemed like he was hanging on for me, and I didn't want him to do that because he was, obviously struggling so much to live. And so I finally said to him, please just let go. It's okay to let go. I'm going to be okay. And I had the love and support of our families in the church. I laid down in the bed beside him, and I was holding his left hand, and he slowly went downhill. And at about 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, he fell asleep. It was a very difficult time in my life. But his whole attitude through all of this cancer was that he was honored that God had chosen him to be an example to other people. He loved God. He's tried to speak to people about it all the time and about his belief and his faith. And he just had a lot of strength. And I think a lot of people looked up to him, a lot of young people. He was only 24 when he passed away. I was 20. He was an example to everybody that he met. And I thought, I wonder who that person is that he was the biggest example to. I was at a wedding later on that spring of a friend of ours. And I was talking to this lady, sister, and I had said to her, Alan had the greatest attitude. He was honored that God had chosen him to be an example to other people. And I said, but I'm waiting to see. I'd love to meet that person. And it was like a light bulb went off as I was talking to her, that I realized that I was the person that had been influenced by his character and his love of life and his spirituality. And that hit me like a ton of bricks.